Denmark has excellent coffee, it turns out.
Yeah.
I mean, and wonderful, sweet human beings.
Oh my God, what a sweetheart. That was, as I was saying just the end, I'm like, it sucks he's in Denmark. I was like, can we go get a coffee tomorrow? I want to hang out. So relaxing, so calming.
We are talking, folks, about just having wrapped up our latest episode of the podcast with none other than Klaus Thomsen from Coffee Collective in Denmark. And it was a great conversation. We wanted to unpack tease out of all of his knowledge there about how does a roaster set up a great coffee offering and what are some of the things that went through his mind as he did Coffee Collective.
And when did he win BC?
2006, I
2006.
believe, is the year.
Because I remember them having that when I was visiting and that kind of thing. I think out of all of our guests that we've had that have been World Barista Champions, that was the most chill and collected, like brush over it, like, yeah, I win a little thing.
I won it. I wonder if he still has it on his email signature. 2006 World Barista Champion. Yeah, it was a great conversation. I think we talked about a whole heap of different things. We probably went down a rabbit hole there with coffee sourcing, which I think just spoke to the importance that a coffee roasting business needs to put on where does their green coffee buying and their values align with what then you take to market as a roasted coffee, right? So I thought that was kind of really fascinating, and it's something that Collective is so well known for is their relationships with the producers.
Crazy seeing how big they were now. I didn't realize like how far they'd stretched, both from their wholesale accounts, but also their, as they called it, a chain, which he was like, it's a bit of a dirty word, but it's for the good of the coffee, I swear.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned that one of your first trip to Denmark was to Copenhagen, and you went to the Coffee Collective there and had like this mind-blowing great coffee.
Yeah.
And what was that in the space that is kind of was like a little few steps down and was like a little
roaster at the back?
Yeah. Like one of their, as he said, not their original cafe spot, but I kind of thought it would be. But it's a very understated, cute little spot there.
Oh, it was such a vibe going in there, and it was so calm and quiet, and they were so lovely. As I said, they kind of redirected me. I asked for a double ristretto, and they're like, "This will taste better."
Yeah,
I was like, "Okay," and it did. We went in a few times from them, but I mean, inspirational. They just started out as like a couple guys that sounded like they got a storage garage and out near an airport and just put a roaster in it. And so it kind of shows like just start where you can. And I think my big takeaway from that was putting in that time and effort to write down what you want to achieve. And I'm probably like, I feel like the Danes maybe are a bit more like maybe rigid and like, this is how we're doing it. I think personally that you can change those and it can grow and evolve over time. But I think starting out with something gives you a really great guiding principle. I call it the North Star of everything should ladder up to these beliefs. And it makes it easier for you to make decisions in your brand without getting too lost and convoluted, you know?
Yeah, definitely. That's a lot of the coaching that I do with clients as well is talking about that purpose or the mission. Why are you even in existence? There are a lot of coffee roasters out there. Why are you starting another coffee roaster if you're doing it? If it's just like, oh, well, I like coffee and I'm going to turn green beans brown. It's like, it's not going to be a very deep kind of experience for your customers. It's probably not going to have much longevity. And you could just see how much having that clear kind of reason for existence helped anchor them through, huge changes in the industry. And to huge success. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the coffee range because I think Collective's approach to what coffees they serve out or what they offer to wholesale customers is a little bit unique. Klaus talked about them having only one blend. They had their secret, like the batch ends kind of lucky dip blend.
Which was sick as well. That was cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind drinking some of that.
Yeah, no, I want it.
Sign me.
Yeah. And, only one blend and it's a seasonal blend. So it changes all the time. And that's quite different to some other markets out there, right?
Yeah, completely. I think, Australia, I'd even say more so America, it's like you have your house blend and then people are trying to source and find coffees that are going to match that flavor profile so that it always tastes the same year round because people are going to be pissed off if they can't get the coffee that they want that they've come accustomed to. Whereas he was like, well, that's kind of not how coffee works. It's like, we go through the seasons. There are different feelings that we want to create. And so it's kind of crazy. Like for me, thinking about going into a cafe, like if I was going into a major cafe here in Australia, if I was to get a latte one day and it tasted like nuts and chocolate. And then I went in the next day and it tasted like berries and citrus or something.
Yep.
That would be very unexpected. I would be like,
Yeah.
what is happening here? They've given me the wrong thing. But over there, it's an experience.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. I mean, I think if you're starting out a roastery or you're kind of looking to refine your coffee offering as a roastery, you kind of need to be considerate, I think, of what the standard of the market is. You don't want to be kind of totally defined by that. And Klaus was like really quite firm on that, is like kind of listen to them, but kind of don't listen to them, because if you listen to them too much, all you're going to be is this averaged out kind of middle ground. But I think that, yeah, if we tried to do that in Australia, and there are some coffee roasters here in Australia who do have purely seasonal blends. I think Market Lanes is generally pretty kind of varying, which is great. But too much change, I think, is not where the majority of your market is. And you just need to be considerate about how you can take them along on that journey. Coffee Collective have done a great job at like having those conversations, day in, day out for the last decade plus.
Yeah. And I think that's the difference, right? I think it's why do you exist as a roastery and why are you doing it? Like, you then have to put in so much communication effort, both through marketing, staffing, and all those kind of things, to communicate that with the customer so that they're not just confused by what's happening. There's a lot of work that has to then go in behind the scenes to communicate that properly.
Yeah. And so I think if you are a roaster and you're passionate about that idea of seasonality and of having the conversation, maybe you can actually have two blends. You have one that is very profile driven and is very kind of more consistent throughout the year. And then you have another seasonal blend, and you can have those on bar or recommend them to the passionate cafe owners who buy that product, saying like, yes, if you are aligned with that discussion, here's the great product for you. And I would actually encourage people to experiment with that no matter where you are in the world, because as Klaus said, it underpins these bigger conversations. Maybe a few of them challenging conversations of like, oh yeah, coffee is a seasonal product. It happens once a year. There's limited amount. It's not all year round, same.
Yeah. And I mean, he got to the point where it was like, there were times where our store had 2 coffees on offering that were both from Brazil. And that was just the way that our model worked and the position that we were left in with that. So that was kind of interesting. He also talked about the filter versus Omni roast, a filter and espresso versus Omni roast and that side of thing, with his argument being that espresso is by far so different from the other brewing types. And so to get the most out of it each way, you need to have them separately. Whereas would you have some other people argue that, no, you just need to know what you're doing with your extraction method would be their side?
Yeah. And I guess for people listening who haven't maybe come across the phrase before, Omni roast is the idea that there's a single roast that can be utilized for espresso or for filter extraction. It's one kind of roast profile. Whereas normally you would develop the coffee less. You would roast a little bit lighter for filter coffee. And again, it's a little bit different for different markets, depending on what the filter standard is, from Australia to North America to Asia and further afield.
In the States, it's mainly Omnis, right? Like most places are kind of,
it's
obviously
a lot
there would be some places that don't, but I know that I got confused. I went into a few specialty places when I was there and I was like, oh, which ones are your filter coffees? And they were like, they're all coffee, man. What are you talking about? They're all for filter. And I'm like, oh, okay. I just thought that maybe it'd be, they're like, no, and they're looking at me like I'm an idiot. I'm like, okay, sorry.
Yeah. And some roasteries, there's a real attraction, a draw towards it just from an operational efficiency.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I do one roast, I can send it to anything. Klaus was very polite. I'll be a little less polite. I think that Omnis are a lazy way of like hitting out on an operational front, and it's actually a compromise for espresso and for filter. You're never likely nailing either.
So this is where you talk about different needs in the market and why you exist. So and here, debate me on this if it's wrong, because we can look at the coffee offering. Because we're mainly online, educational, and a lot of our following comes from espresso and that type of base, we find it harder to have that filter coffee offering, but want to intrigue people and bring them into that world as we do it. But so many of our followers have the Breville machine at home and have that. So we were offering a Kenyan. We wanted to bring in that, the fruitier side, the berries, those kind of things. And so we offered it as an Omni because we were using that as a way that our customers could be like, I have an espresso, but we could also train them into trying it as a filter. You've also got it here, but try it in this way. So I found for us, it's very different from why other people would have Omni. And I felt like it was a way of solving a problem that we were having and kind of educating people. But I will agree that it probably means that it's not the best of either side, but it did represent that Kenyan for exactly what you'd want it to be, you know.
Did people engage with that? Did they kind of like brew it up full filter?
Yeah.
Were they adding milk?
No.
Okay. Look, I think it's a really interesting conversation. And I think that is a good way of framing it, is that you're moving it through, you're providing people a stepping stone from a heavier milk-based espresso coffee into the world of filter, where maybe they're adding a splash of milk because they're not used to drinking black, or maybe they're really used to that body and weight of espresso extractions. So I can definitely see that. I think that it's just when it becomes the standard overall that then you're kind of maybe compromising on both sides.
Let's take a short break and go live to our field reporter, Ollie from Condensate Collab, who's here to give us an update on all of the movements in the coffee market this week.
Gents, always good to hear from you. So in the past week, the market has continued to charge up a steep curve. Today, we're looking at a level of 384.05. Whilst we do anticipate a short retracements of sort, we are still expecting the market to continue to go up. The weather has stabilized. We seem to be through the worst of the cool weather season, which means we don't have to contend with that at least. But Brazil and Colombia are now finished with their crops. In addition to this, tariffs into the US from importers like Vietnam and Brazil means there is less coffee available in the US, which continues to support higher prices. Economic uncertainty also remains. If the US lowers interest rates as anticipated, US currency will weaken, and that will cause rallies on the C market. What this means for you, the roaster and consumer? Well, expect price swings, but overall, coffee is still on the expensive side in at least short to medium term periods. If you see a deal or a price window or a coffee indeed that works for you, snap up the coffees you need. Don't wait too long, as the window might not last. And that's it from me. Back to you guys in the studio. As always, it's been a pleasure, and it's just coffee.
Do you want to keep going on the offering side of things? Because I had a little question that I want to bring up. We're interviewing a lot of coffee nerds, right? Like the people that are like deep in the weeds. Like, you know, a lot of people would say it's like, I'm a coffee nerd, but they're like, you know, the next level coffee nerds. What is this constant debate of like the washed and naturals, and why do people want to die on a hill so hard about it? Like, why can't there be this more open thing of like, I generally liked wash, but this one I found was really good. Like, there are so many people that are like, only wash, that's it. Anything else is terrible.
Honestly, I think there's a little bit of inertia there or like hang-ups from earlier days where naturals were kind of not the coffees that were coming out with the most control. By their very nature, they're kind of a little bit less controlled, right? And certainly, you know, a couple of decades ago, you could still get incredible naturals, but there's more risk because you're drying the whole coffee cherries and you can have a lot of uniformity issues, a lot of inconsistency. Whereas washed processes, because of the nature of it, you're taking out a lot of the sugars. There's a bit less fermentation. It's more homogenized. It's a little bit cleaner. And I think that people were like, I've tasted too many wild, kind of inconsistent naturals, and that's kind of stuck in their heads. And I think, you know, the Scandinavian countries were known really strongly for steering clear of the natural processed coffees. And I don't know whether that was a kind of a philosophical thing or like a cultural palate kind of thing. We should have asked Klaus more about it.
But do you think since then that the processing and the way of doing natural coffees has improved a lot, that there is a lot more consistency? So I feel like it's getting that change, but people are still hung up on some old ideas of it. And then it brings me to the question of like, people look at like a washed coffee as being like, this is the true representation of the terroir or like whatever. But the natural coffee is just fermented in the fruit that grew on the tree. Like that's as you know, representing the whole tree rather than just like this single thing. So I find it an interesting debate to kind of have, and maybe I should have pushed Klaus on it more.
Yeah, I
His
think it's
thoughts.
fascinating. But you could even hear Klaus was kind of talking about, hey, I'm coming around a
Yeah.
little bit. I'm
Yeah, that's
starting
very
to taste even some of the anaerobic coffees. And I agree. And I think it's just a cycle of our industry with, qualities of coffee changing, access to those coffees, flavor preferences, all of this is going through a cycle. And we kind of overshoot sometimes. And we've seen that with the prevalence of anaerobic coffees that are just like crazy levels of fermentation and they just don't feel balanced.
I'm a little bit jealous of the people that are that opinionated because we have so much access, and it's the same thing with wines or with anything. We have so much access to so much quality that it's a little, I find my opinion is oh yeah, you can find a good version of that somewhere.
Yeah.
Sure, you can find something you won't like. But when I was running a wine bar, I remember used to have girls come in, they're like, I just can't do a Chardonnay. And I'm like,
but that's just based off media and trends and going off. It became uncool to drink a Chardonnay because it's overly oaky and the cat piss, sorry, excuse the language, side of it.
Yeah. And not that I'm drawing the exact parallels, but I actually think that's what happened with natural coffees. Right. I think people were kind of going oh, it's inconsistent, it's wild, it's over fermented, and that really drew things apart for people.
Is it quite a young process? Is that?
It's the oldest process.
Yeah. It's
the OG,
the
kind
original.
of way.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was about to draw the kind of connection to sours and kind of natty wines and stuff like that.
Well, the beans fermenting in the fruit is completely natural. It's the process of removing that fruit to then do it that is the weird side of it. And you look at a lot of countries where it's hey, naturals became a bigger thing because there's not access to the water to wash them and to do that. You were also bringing up, this is just ideas we've been talking about offline, this idea of open table discussions or doing that. I was just thinking, I was I'd love to do a deep dive with someone who's a super nerd on infused coffees and get them to pitch their this is why I think it's going to be the future. Here's where it could go. Because at the moment they're crazy, right? The flavors can be so overpowering and there's no balance. But natural coffees or whatever, I think we'll probably find some refinement. And then I was maybe we need to do it as find the biggest infused coffee person and the most anti-infused coffee person and just get them at a table and go, we'll just sit back and relax. Maybe we have to vote on which side we're on at the end. Be
up scorecards.
Yeah. 5.
Both of them have to bring a coffee and everyone just tries it, and
Yeah, I think, there's some fascinating conversations. I think it's just a maturity and a moment of the market with all different things where we start experimenting and going really wide with the variety and the opportunities there, and then start going, okay, now we found the boundaries of where we want to play, and we start kind of coming back into something that's a bit more intentional. Maybe it's a little bit more sophisticated is probably the wrong word, but it's kind of a little bit more refined in its understanding of what a profile could be. And I think that's the same for so many coffees. It's we're coming back around to there might be a point in the future where infused coffees, at the moment it's so wild and people are pushing the outside boundaries, but it might come back and okay, here's the subtle kind of elegant kind of addition that really kind of lifts this in a well understood manner.
You want it to be a tasting note of what you get in coffee now, right? You want to be oh, am I getting a little touch of this? Not just boom, ow, my head.
It's full of jasmine.
I'm trying to think of what Klaus said. He is I've gone away from the funky stuff and because I just want to, and he connected it to a Pilsner, right? The beer.
Oh, he just wants to be able to drink it all day.
He
can knock back. And it's
I just want a joy.
As an industry, we go in circles. Speaking of going in circles, that's all the time that we have for you today. Ben, was there anything else that you wanted to kind of say? Make sure to follow Ben at Ben Bicknell, the man, the Q grader, the WBC judge. And to all of your competitors, he will be taking bribes. So start sending in. He's don't even talk about this. There's actual contractual stuff. I will say live on the air, that is a joke.
No, I will not.
He will not.
Just verbally negating what he said over there. That Jamaica.
I'm not winking at the camera. No, make sure to hit us up at hello@itsjustcoffeepod.com. If you have any guests, any topics that you want to hear, any questions, make sure to subscribe. We love you all. It's been growing month on month. Maybe it's since Ben started, so I'm feeling a bit offended by that. But the numbers are going up.
The magic, buddy.
It's the magic. It's the
between
connection.
us.
Well, I do love you very dearly.
Oh, right back at you.
Thank you for listening. Liam, you're beautiful. Thank you for putting all the hard work in behind the scenes, editing this, sending it to us. He's working over the weekend so that we can get this episode out in just a few days. We love you very much for that. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on It's Just Coffee.
Ciao, everyone.
Bye.